Sometimes I feel my heart race when she leaves or doesn't respond to a message. A simple exchange of glances or a conversation with someone else can trigger a whirlwind of thoughts. I catch myself wondering what's going on, and if I am enough to keep her by my side. I know that the fear of being cheated on can consume a person's mind and soul, and I think it has already consumed mine. It feels like, at any moment, what I have could be taken away from me. Anxiety starts to take over. Doubt arises with every gesture or word, and I begin to question if I am truly enough. The pain of thinking about the possibility of being left behind, of seeing the love I believe I have unravel because of betrayal, is overwhelming. And all of this anguish, seems to come from a place where trust is already fragile, where uncertainty begins to dominate. I know that insecurity is fueling this fear, but I can't help but think, what if it really happens? I don't want to live like this, with fear always lurking, but I don't know how to let it go. Wisdom. How can I overcome the fear of being cheated on?
I understand the anguish and fear you feel, and how much it steals your peace. The fear of being cheated on is a very common concern, and it can consume your mind and emotions, leaving you insecure and distressed. Often this fear is not based on something real, but rather a constant feeling of doubt and mistrust that invades your heart. However, while this feeling is natural, it can be overcome. Wisdom brings answers and practices that can help you overcome this fear and ultimately live more peacefully and confidently in your relationship. Embrace this teaching and let it speak to your heart. Wisdom wants to leave you with 4 important pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is, discover the origin of the enemy of your emotions. This fear of being cheated on, this constant anxiety, often doesn't come from nowhere. It has a root, an origin that needs to be identified so it can be fought effectively. Have you ever asked yourself when and how you started feeling this fear? Was it something that actually happened? Any past experience, whether in previous relationships or during childhood, that planted this seed of mistrust? Or perhaps it was something someone said, or something your partner did, even if unintentionally, that triggered this insecurity. Identifying the origin of this fear is the first crucial step in overcoming it. If the distrust is based on real experiences, then it's important to deal with those traumas and try to understand why those situations generated this type of insecurity. If, on the other hand, this fear is the result of assumptions and projections, you need to ask yourself, what makes me think this might happen now? Am I projecting past fears onto a present relationship? Understanding the origin of the fear helps you realize that it may not be based on real foundations, and often you are just preparing for something that may never happen. By identifying your own insecurities and understanding where they come from, you can begin to deconstruct them. This will allow you to start trusting more in your partner, and most importantly, in yourself. By reflecting on this, you will find peace, as you will realize that often what you fear is something that has no basis in reality, but rather echoes of past experiences. By knowing your emotions and their origins, you strengthen yourself and gain the power to choose trust over fear. The second piece of advice is, strengthen your inner trust. The fear of being cheated on often comes from a sense of internal insecurity. When you don't feel fully secure in yourself, doubts and fears begin to creep in, creating an unstable foundation for the relationship. Have you ever asked yourself why insecurity takes over you? What do you feel is missing within yourself? The key to overcoming the fear of being cheated on is investing in your self-esteem and strengthening your internal trust. When you work on your self-awareness and start to understand your emotions, the fear loses strength. Have you taken time to reflect on what you truly value in yourself? What makes you feel secure and confident? If you don't need external approval to feel good about yourself, wouldn't it be easier to trust others as well? By understanding who you are, what you value, and what you need to feel complete, you begin to feel more secure, regardless of external situations. Have you stopped to reflect on how much you depend on the other person to feel good? How would it be if you felt completely secure and happy, regardless of your partner's behavior? When your happiness and security don't depend on external factors or the validation of others, you become more resilient in the face of emotional challenges. How do you think you could feel more secure in your own skin? What could you do to strengthen this solid base of self-confidence? Furthermore, trusting yourself is key to dealing with insecurity and fears in a relationship. Have you ever tried trusting yourself more to let go of assumptions and fears about the other person's behavior? When you feel secure in your own identity, the fears of betrayal decrease. Have you noticed how much lighter you feel when you are at peace with yourself? By investing in your self-esteem and strengthening your internal trust, you create a strong foundation that eliminates fear and allows you to embrace the relationship more peacefully. The fourth piece of advice is avoid creating an imaginary world based on assumptions. The fear of being cheated on often leads us to create scenarios in our minds where things happen that, in reality, have never occurred. Have you noticed how, by allowing yourself to be consumed by this fear, you end up imagining situations that never materialized? Like when something small, like a conversation between your partner and someone else, becomes a sign of something much bigger. This kind of distorted thinking can create a spiral of distrust, where you start interpreting actions or words in an exaggerated way, without any concrete basis. It's important to realize that these assumptions are often products of your anxiety and insecurity, not reality. By focusing on these doubts and not questioning them, you might end up creating a narrative in your mind that, while it may seem real, is just a result of fear. Have you ever caught yourself making up entire stories in your mind without any facts to support them? These thoughts, although natural, are not productive. If you keep feeding this fantasy, you will only push away mental peace and emotional balance. What can you do to avoid this vicious cycle? Start questioning your own thoughts and distinguishing what is real from what is merely a projection of fear. By focusing on the facts, on concrete actions, and on real evidence, you prevent your mind from being filled with unfounded doubts. At the same time, it's essential to remember to practice trust. Trust is built day by day, through small actions, not through assumptions or unfounded fears. Maintaining a healthy mind means allowing it to live in the present and in reality, without getting lost in a maze of imaginary scenarios that may never happen. A peaceful and healthy mind is one that is based on what is real and tangible, not on what could be. By cultivating this mindset, you can keep your focus on what truly matters, and thus avoid letting the fear of what might happen take control of you. Trust is the key to building this peace and not letting yourself be consumed by the fantasy of fear. Allow me to share a parable about fear that transforms into an illusion created by our own minds, the parable of the deer and the eagle. In a beautiful forest, there were two very different animals, but with a strong bond of friendship, a deer and an eagle. The deer was very cautious and always feared what could happen. He believed the world was full of dangers and that no one could be fully trusted. The eagle, on the other hand, flew freely in the skies, trusting her instinct and what she saw ahead. They had been friends for years, and although they had opposite personalities, their relationship was built on mutual trust. One morning, while the eagle was flying in the sky, the deer became worried. What if she goes too far away from me? What if she finds another place to live, far from me? What would happen if she didn't come back? The deer became obsessed with these thoughts and began to imagine that, perhaps, the eagle had decided to leave forever without warning. Fear grew in his heart, creating images of the eagle flying away, never to return, leaving him behind, alone in the forest. Meanwhile, the eagle, calm and serene, continued her flight. She knew that, although she loved her friendship with the deer, she needed her freedom to live fully. But she always came back to him, just as she always had. She had no intention of leaving him forever, but the deer, caught in his fear, couldn't see that. One afternoon, while the deer was walking through the forest, his thoughts took over his mind, and he decided to confront the eagle. "You are cheating on me, aren't you? You're leaving, abandoning me without notice," he said, with pain in his eyes. The eagle looked at him calmly and replied, "Dear, I've never left you. I always come back to you. But you are creating an entire world of fears and assumptions that aren't real. You are letting your fear of losing something you already have control your mind. And in doing so, you are placing between us something that never existed." The deer stood silent, reflecting on the eagle's words. He realized that by fearing something that hadn't yet happened, he had distanced himself from his own happiness and trust. His fear of losing the eagle, which would never come true, was making him see a reality that didn't exist. The lesson of the parable is clear. Often the fear of being cheated on is a world created only in your mind. When you allow yourself to be consumed by assumptions and fears with no real basis, you end up projecting situations that will never happen. Trust is the key to a healthy relationship, and by nurturing fear and distrust without reason, you create an illusion that only pushes you away from true peace. Just like the deer, you may find yourself trapped in thoughts and fears that have no foundation. But by learning to trust in love and friendship, just as the deer learned to trust the eagle, you can put the fear aside. By doing so, you will be able to live more freely, appreciating what you have without creating fantasies that only cause you pain. If this video has added value to your life and you feel ready to leave fear and distrust behind, subscribe to the channel for more messages of wisdom and self-knowledge. And now, I want to hear from you. How have you dealt with your own fears in relationships? Leave your response in the comments and share your journey of overcoming with us. May you find the inner peace you seek, and may your steps be guided by trust and true love.